even early on, there were signs that it could all get very bad.
The West Fire is our main concern.
Within hours, the fire swept into the city. Those initial moments of chaos seared into the minds of those who not only saw, but felt the scorching heat on their way out of Fort McMurray.
We should go.
It's gonna burn down!
Before the fire took hold with its unpredictable and unrelenting grip, it started off the way so many wildfires do, in the forest. There's no road that leads to this spot, but from the air you can see the fire's blackened route. It all began around 10 kilometers southwest of Fort McMurray. Take a look at this. This is ground zero. This is where the fire started last May. The charred trees mark the beginning of a path of so much destruction. The fire started here along this trail frequently used by those driving quads and ATVs. Investigators may never know what caused the fire, but we do know this. Lives were changed. And as the forest begins to regenerate, so does the community of Fort McMurray. 1 year on, it's impossible to label just where this city is at. People's experiences vary widely. Some have rebuilt, even moved on, but others still struggle to reclaim what the fire took. This was the view at Centennial Trailer Park on May 1st of last year. Perched on the edge of the forest, it was the first area in the city to burn, and all Joanne Bates could do was watch in horror.
So we lost everything now. We don't have what we have on our backs.
I get chills watching that.
Bates has seen this moment many times before. Even a year later, friends continue to stumble upon it online and send it her way. Still, it's wincingly painful to watch.
That's our place blowing up.
How much do you think about that day still?
Oh, I try not to, but there's always moments that brings you back to that. You could be walking in the store and it's like you'll see something that you had, or you'll say, well, I had that, you know, like I don't have it anymore.
So how long were you living in this RV for?
We were living for 5 months in here.
Bates and her partner bought this RV after the fire. They parked it wherever someone would let them. The campground they once called home still hasn't reopened. But 1 year on, the RV is now up for sale and they're renting a home.
Work is slow, but at least we have a roof over our head and we're back in Fort Mac. That's the main thing.
She's living in Gregoire, a neighborhood just across the highway from the trailer park. It was one of the first areas to be evacuated as the fire approached. That's where Carl Moore and his business partner, Rebecca Irving, live. They run a company that operates vacuum and water trucks. They, like thousands of others, left as the fire swept in. But Carl returned with a retrofitted truck designed to pump water. We saw him and his team test it that day when they went back into the fire.
Like, it was pretty chaotic then. We were just going with the water. We didn't have any breathing apparatuses or anything. And like there was plastics, chemicals, propane, everything burning. Without knowing it, I guess we sucked it in.
And he believes all that toxic smoke has affected his lungs. Since the fire, he's had problems breathing, making it difficult to get through a full day on the floor. Another issue, the yard is packed with trucks and equipment, a sign that business is down.
It's been a very long year, very tiresome, between running around, trying to deal with insurance, trying to get back to work and find work as well. You know, it's been slower.
Some of it's got to do with the fire, yeah. Some of it's just because of the economy. Like directly from the fire, I'd say we lost half to $750,000.
Because before Fort McMurray was struck by disaster, it was dealing with a downturn. The municipality estimates that around 5,000 people haven't returned to Fort McMurray because they've lost their homes or jobs, in some cases both. For sale signs stick out from the dirt on empty lots, part of the changed landscape now in Beacon Hill. After After the trailer park, this was the next neighborhood the fire hit. It backs onto the forest, making it serene, yet vulnerable. It was here where Anthony Hoffman grew up. As a firefighter, he spent days scrambling from one burning house to another.
I finally got a breather one evening, and I just took my car up here and came to see it for the first time.
Before the fire, he was renovating it because his family wanted to sell the house. Soon it will just be the lot on the market.
We're picking open a wound a little bit that's finally started to heal. So some people are just, myself included, we're moving on.
Along with all he lost last year, he believes there was something he gained. The kind of perspective you only get when you go through something traumatic.
It's been a good year for me in terms of realigning my priorities, getting closer to family. You're able to relate on a deeper level with someone who's going through something that hurts because you've done it.
But not everyone is in a position where they're so willing to reflect. For some, the discussion around the year that was is still painful.
It was one of the worst difficult years I ever went through in all my life, to be honest. It has been very up and down.
Angelina Gionnet is running a francophone daycare in the cramped quarters of this church basement because the school they used to be in was heavily damaged by smoke. It's located in Abassan. The neighborhood is separated from Beacon Hill by the Hanging Stone River, but it was futile when it came to stopping the advancing fire. Nearly 350 buildings were destroyed here, including the home Gionnet rented.
Abassan, it is my place, and I'm not living there no more, and I miss that.
And she misses all that space the daycare used to have. When they opened in this basement in the fall, she had to tell 30 families there was no longer room for their children at the daycare. Not only had people lost homes, but they lost the services and support they depended on.
It's difficult when you have to tell families that you can't not offer them services, especially if they can't not go anywhere else.
As you would expect, Gionnet is all smiles when it comes to playtime with the children. But just ask where her mind will be on May 3rd, the anniversary of when the fire roared into the city. Well, it's a different matter. She doesn't want to be anywhere near Fort McMurray that day.
I just want to go over that part. I just want to, yeah, I don't want to think about it. I just want the service to go back. They all trying to have that new normal that they're talking about and try to go one day at a time like we did for the whole year.
That term, the new normal, is something you frequently hear, an acknowledgement that even for those who didn't lose a home, things have changed. Take the controlled burns that happen every year. They're a routine part of spring. But this season, they started earlier, and people were told about them ahead of time because of the concern that they could spark fear. While the sight of smoke may be a temporary trigger for some, for others, the reminders are glaring and as obvious now as they were last year.
And the solarium was at the back, right at the back.
Despite what the sign says, it would be wrong to label Mike Ryan's home as a construction site because there's no work going on here. His property is located in the rural hamlet of Sapre Creek, about 25 kilometers southeast of the city. The fire ravaged it one day after consuming other neighborhoods in Fort McMurray.
It's quite an eerie feeling actually walking through here thinking about that. Just thinking about all the things that have gone. Yeah.
Every time you make that trip down the driveway and you look out and you see all of this, what goes through your mind, Mike?
Well, I just think about life itself, you know, it's pretty rough.
Which is why it's sadly ironic that amidst all the debris and ash on his property, this mug was the only thing Ryan was able to salvage from his home. On his property sits a melted car and some charred equipment. He hasn't started rebuilding because he's still trying to settle his claim with his insurance company.
Stress is an understatement sometimes when you you get up every day and you can't figure out what your future is. You don't know if you want to live here or move on. You don't know what to do.
Are you asking yourself those questions now?
All the time, every day.
Ryan is far from the only one who made little progress in the past year. Of the 1,600 buildings destroyed in the fire, permits have been issued to rebuild less than half of them. Some blocks are still mostly barren, but others have already been transformed. This neighborhood in Timberley is on the northwest side of Fort McMurray. It was one of the last areas in the city to burn, but it's perhaps the furthest along when it comes to rebuilding.
You look around from a year ago when we were all out back in, and the devastation, the tears, the emotions and stuff. And then you fast forward a year when people are moving home. And the amount of houses that have went up just in a year, it's just amazing.
Trevor Rousel used to work in the oil patch, but now is helping to rebuild his own neighborhood. We first met him last year.
First, look at the house. It's after the fire. There it used to be.
The day he and his wife were allowed back in to see the damage firsthand.
That little chunk of land that I paid a lot of money for, a lot of sweat, blood, tears went into it, that's mine. I'm building my house back there.
1 year later, he's back at his property, and there's his house, nearly ready for move-in. The finishing touches are being handled by a relative.
My father-in-law has strictly forbidden me and my wife going into the house at this point. So once it's completely finished and we take that first step in and the first night we stay in there, it's going to be very, very emotional.
He plans to be back in his house to mark the 1 year anniversary of the fire by holding a barbecue for family and friends.
It's one step closer to being able to say hi to my neighbor. That's the biggest change I see in this whole year. The communities are starting to look like communities again, not just a wasteland.
Rousel knows how fortunate he is. For some, the pace of rebuilding feels achingly slow, particularly when you consider how quickly it was all destroyed. At the trailhead that leads to where the fire began stands a new sign, warning about how easily fires can start and spread. Everyone here is reminded of that every day, whether they're about to move into a brand new home or still struggling to get past the devastation left by the fire's erratic path. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Fort McMurray.